Hi everyone, welcome to Murphy's Law Garage. Today we replaced the rear lower control arm bearings in my Whippled S650 Mustang with these BMR units. Let's get at it. Alright, I want to take a minute to tell you that this video is brought to you by Kelltrac. Kelly Aiken over there, he's an awesome guy who hooked me up with these parts at a discount. These are probably the most labor intensive of the parts we have here on the table. If you're interested in any of the other of these, there will be videos following this one. But to get these guys in, we need to take the lower control arm out of the car. So let's go get the car picked up, take the rear wheels off, and start getting to work. All right, wheels are off, car's picked up on jack stands. I'm underneath it. And we need to get this lower control arm out of the car. Now, reading through BMR's instructions, they make it sound like this control arm can come out of the car without touching the subframe or the exhaust. Those two rear bolts, and I'll tell you exactly how much more tomfoolery may or may not have to occur. All right, wait. It is a day later. I am very burnt and tired, and I want to talk about something real quick. As you can see, there's already a ton of tools on the table, and there's even replaced parts missing and sat out. BMR, in their written instructions, I didn't look at the video, but I'm sure it's the same if they have one. In the written instructions, make it seem like you can remove the control arm in situ. And what I mean by that is that you can leave everything else connected that can stay, but you disconnect everything from the control arm. You get all little bolts and things disattached from it, and you can get it out from underneath. I'm here to tell you that while that is actually possible, it stressed me and my G-force axles out so much to try to wiggle that lower control arm out of there that I stopped and finished disassembling the entire knuckle and pulled the axle out with it so that I wouldn't be putting a bunch of stress on my components. So I'm actually going to restart filming how to do this the way that I think you should be doing it, rather than trying to sneak the control arm out. There's a bolt in the back that is almost impossible to get to that holds the back of the control arm in towards the front, and there's no way with the sneaking the control arm out that you could properly torque that bolt, and it's not safe. The angle you have to hit it at, because the axle is occupying the same space, is super dangerous. I'm going to show that to you real quick, but then I'm also going to explain to you now what we're going to do instead of what's been done currently. Here I am on the driver's side, which I initially intended to show you the install on because it's the shady side of the car when working out in the sun. You can see here that my vertical link and my toe arm and that bearing and that bearing is already in. We're going to go ahead and move over to this side of the car. If I sound annoyed, it's because I am. Ended up taking way more time than I accounted for. So, look. We need to lower the subframe to make room to get this spring out more easily. One of the big annoyances I had with dealing with that lower control arm is that even though this is a shorter spring, it was still always in the way. So to get this lower control arm out, we're going to treat it as if we're pulling the whole axle, knuckle assembly and everything. We're actually going to disconnect the knuckle, pop the axle out, and take the axle out with the knuckle so that we don't have to mess with the nut. That way I don't have to worry about getting a new nut. My nut's reusable, but again, don't want to mess with that. So to lower the subframe and to make room to work on a lower control arm, one of the things you're going to need to do is to take your mufflers off the back of the car. So I've got mine disconnected. I'm going to get in there and show you at the midpoint of the car to get them out of the way. And then the next thing you need to do to make room for the subframe to drop is you're going to disconnect your shock from the bottom of the lower control arm. You can see I've already got my Kelltrac shock disconnected. That's just a couple of bolts here down low underneath the knuckle. Get your shock disconnected, get it out of the way. And then right here, the brake line, I've gone ahead and disconnected it, and then I've got my ABS lines and all of that loose. I will come in here and actually disconnect this bracket, unclip these things, and fold it up out of the way. You're going to need to do that on both sides. That's why you saw mine are still disconnected on the other side. Once you've done that, we need to get under the car. So under the car now, you can see where I've disconnected both of my mufflers. The reason why I need it to do that is this bolt on the lower control arm, I can't get to it with my MBRP setup in place. So I've gone ahead and unbolted it and pulled it out of the way. The two bolts for the shock I was telling you about, they are right here and right here. You're going to take those two out. Next, you need to lower the subframe of the car, and there's going to be 4 bolts. This guy right here, it's already got my Kelltrac Posiloc on it. So this bolt, that bolt, this bolt, and then there's going to be 2 bolts, that guy and that guy, that hold this support in place right here, subframe brace. Same here, bolt, 2 bolts out. Now what I've done here, you can see is the 4 major bolts are still in. So what I do is, one at a time, I'll back the bolt all the way out, and then I'll put it in by hand, 4 threads. And I'll do that one at a time, each of them, back it all the way out, 4 threads, all the way out, 4 threads, all the way out, 4 threads. And that ensures that the subframe is still safely hanging in place. It's not gonna move around on you, and you've got enough room now that with the suspension fully drooped and the subframe to easily get this spring out of here once we start disconnecting other things and getting it out of the way. Now I'd like to take a minute to show you the bolt that BMR wanted you to get to with this all in place. You see that guy right there? That one. See that bolt? See this axle? See where it is? Now look, Ford could have freaking turned this bolt the other way and made some room for it so it wouldn't be facing in. But I have a feeling that BMR, and I know for a fact they did, in the video, in written instructions, they have stock axles, which are much thinner than these G-Force Renegades. While I can get the perfect assortment of wobbles and CV joints in here and a short socket to get to that bolt, it is a weird angle. It's really hard to turn it, taking a huge risk of rounding it. And I did get it out. I got all of it out. And I tried to take the lower control arm out. And then while trying to fish this out with all of this other stuff in here, I kept yanking on the axle, which is not good. It's unhealthy for the joints in the axle. So I eventually gave up fighting with it. And I'm like, I was right there. I was right at the end. You know what? I'm just tired of this. I don't want to keep risking the axle. And I just finished disconnecting the brakes and stuff and pulled the knuckle out, which is literally just a couple of extra steps. The only thing I've added here to BMR's instructions is to lower the subframe, get your exhaust out of the way, and take the knuckle off, which he's like, that sounds like a lot. It is like 15, 20 minutes worth of work tops to get this crap out of the way so that it is very easy to get the control arm in and out of the car. That being said, let's just do it. All right, so what now? Well, now I want to pull the knuckle. And just literally take all of this out and gut the inside of the suspension so that nothing is hanging off of that lower control arm. Like I told you, I've got this brake line loose here, so one of the clear first steps we need to do is to get this brake off. There are 2 18mm bolts here. You see there's even torque specs. If you need to know what it is, just watch the video as I go. The torque specs are clearly labeled on everything on here. So these 2 18s need to come out. Take your brake caliper and slip it onto your sway bar there, and it's out of the way. We need to disconnect the sway bar. We're going to loosen this one, like almost completely, and then we're going to remove the one below it. So this is an 18mm nut, and that's a 6mm Allen that goes in the center to hold it still. You will need to, impact doesn't work. And then after that, I'll go ahead and remove this bracket, disconnect the parking brake connection here, and then undo the ABS speed sensor right here, which has got a 8mm bolt on it. Take that up out of the way. This is a 10mm here to remove the bracket. Let me get those things loose and out of the way, and then I'll show you the next bolts that need to come off. literally minutes later. I've got all of that stuff disconnected. I've got these wires just pinned up behind the fender liner right here. Brake caliper is just slipped onto the sway bar out of the way. This looks like it's really tight and hurting the line. It's not, it's fine. Got the sway bar end link flipped over and up and out of the way. You can see that my Kelltrac shock is over here out the way. Yes, I know if you have a stock style shock, you can't just wiggle it around and get it out of your way. So if it's bothering you, if you're fighting with it, just take the two top bolts out. These are also 18s, and then get the shock completely out of your way if you'd like to. This is going to go real quick. Obviously, brake rotor, it comes loose after the brakes come off. Just throw it on the ground. What's going to happen here comes quick. I've got a bolt here, this big guy up front on the bottom of the knuckle. I've got this guy right here that connects to the tow rod. That's got to come out. I've got the upper camber arm. This needs to be unbolted and disconnected. And then lastly, we are going to remove the top bolt off of the vertical link and then loosen the bottom bolt. You can, if you want to, especially if you're like doing a vertical link at the same time, you can go ahead and actually completely disassemble this if you want and just get the vertical link completely out of your way, which I'm going to be replacing it, but I need to YouTube things, so I'm going to unfortunately have to stick that sucker back in to show you something. Anyways, get those bolts all completely disconnected. When you do that, this will kind of be floating here, and if it's not, have someone hold it for you, or put a bungee cord or something just to make sure it can't pull on the axle. Remember, we don't want to pull on the axle. And then I'm going to get under the car with a breaker bar and show you how to pop the axle out, and this entire knuckle is going to come away with the axle still attached to it. Oh, and before I take too much apart, I want to show you that bolt from the upside angle that BMR wanted you to try to take out in place. See the axle inside of its compartment here? You see that bolt head down there? You see what is directly in line with that axle? Yep. Just like I told you, I've got this bolt is loose but still in the hole. I've got this one loose but still in the hole. I've got this one loose. I've got this one out. I've got the camber arm out, and I've got it tucked up away in the wiring. Let's slide under the car, show you how to pop the axle. All right, bit of a difficult position to film in single-handedly, but I got you. Here's the axle. We need to pop it out of the diff. It's held in by a C-clip. Traditionally, you would put a pry bar here and pry on the axle. Unfortunately, because the car is up on jack stands and this axle has a bevel right here, it makes it really difficult to pop from the diff side. So I'm actually going to put the pry bar here on the diff. See, there's another protrusion here to help you out, and I'm going to pop it from there. All right, trying to get set up here with my pry bar for you. So I'm going to put that, easier said than done, single-handed here, guys. I'm going to put that guy right here, and I'm going to pry back on it. Lord. Up there it is. And you can see there the axle has popped out. Now, what I like to do is to take a rag that's not full of rocks or dirt or anything, and I'm actually going to fish this guy up over the axle, and then, come on, go back over the top, and then pull that rag tight in the gap. And the reason why I'm doing this is that sometimes the axle, especially if they've been in and out of the car a good bit, that C-clip isn't super duper tight. So the axle will try to pop back in again while you're fighting with the knuckle to slip it out. Also, this rag will follow the axle out of the hole and help prevent drippages as well as protect the splines on the way out. So dual purposes, just leave it kind of slipped in like that. I've done my best to get the camera out of my way and in such a position that you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to go ahead and slip these lower bolts out now. We've already loosened them all the way. Ow. Be careful. The knuckle's got some real sharp edges on it, especially if you're not careful. Get that guy out of there. All right. Now I'm going to grab and support the axle and slip it out at the same time as the knuckle. And come on out with it like that. Since I've already gone through the effort of putting the camera here on the tripod, I'm going to go ahead and take our vertical link, remove it, put the bolt in the position it's supposed to be, set that off on the ground. The toe link here is on a bearing, so you can actually just push that guy down out of the way. It bottoms out down there. I'm going to take my shock and flip it up out of my way, which again I can do because I have Kelltrac stuff. And look at the bouncy rubber suspension from the bearings. That's part of what we're trying to get rid of here. I'm going to push down on the control arm until the spring slips out of the hole. Make sure to save my lower isolator. And yeah, there we go. Now we've only got 2 more bolts holding this guy in here. And then it is now very easy to put a wrench on the one in here because the axle is no longer in the way. In fact, I tend to put an extension and a socket on it, and I can actually grab it from under the car very comfortably. And then also, of course, the one on the back. Now, can't you see, it really wasn't that much effort to get all of this stuff out of the way, to have a free and clear control arm that we can work with without possibly harming the axle or anything else. Just my opinion, take it as it is. I'm gonna go ahead and get these 2 bolts out. They're big guys, they're 24 mils and they are tight. So take your time, get a good socket arrangement on it and get it loose. I wanted to show you what I'm working with here. I've got a wobble extension on the bolt. It's going through the subframe. See it? Like this. And I've got my gun on it and I can just like that. That bolt is loose and out of there. Easy and simple as can be, and I cannot begin to tell you how difficult that is to attempt to do with the axle in the way. And again, back in the tripod, all I'm gonna do here is pull these 2 big bolts out. I'm gonna leave this one to the front and this one to the back. And our control arm is just gonna slip right out of the hole. So easy. I'd love to be more angry than I am already about how difficult this can be to do otherwise, but I think you get the point now. Let's go get this pressed out. I'm gonna go take a minute to get the rocks out of it from drag racing, and then I'm gonna wash it up, and then we're gonna press it out. Do y'all give y'all parts a bath while they're out of the car? I do. And I always use our channel sponsor here, Super Clean, because they have an awesome multi-purpose degreaser that I can just spray on there, let it eat for a minute, brush it, rinse it, and it'll look beautiful. All right, and just like that, our lower control arm is as clean as I care to get it, looking much shinier. You can see here the rear bearing is just that. It is a bearing, yet Ford decided to put a bushing on the front. Let me show you what that looks like. This guy right here. This is that bushing after it's been pressed out. And let me tell you, it's in there. You're going to need a shop press. This sucker drug all the way out and really fought hard. And that bushing is getting replaced with this beautiful bearing to retain it, as well as that clip. I've got footage yesterday from me pressing the other one out, so I'm going to show you that in just a sec. All right, so now that we've struggled getting this out of the car, and I've shown you a completely different way of doing this, this is the arrangement that I'm using to press this bushing out of here. There are many ways to skin this cat, including like ball joint presses and push-pull cups and stuff like that. I have a press in the shop, so I'm going to use a press. A bushing puller pusher, readily available on Amazon. In fact, look, back up, Jake. Bush removal tool and driver set.
The bush removal, huh?
Yep, for when you need to remove the bush.
Looks like a different removal kit for a bush to what I was expecting.
These things are readily available on the internet in case you need a very specific size. So I'm going to go ahead and push this bushing out, and then I'm going to bring you back when I'm pushing the new one in. So I ended up, see, I've also got a cup set here that is designed for pushing and pulling bushings, also on Amazon. And the socket didn't quite make it work. It's that rounded edge it has on it was letting it walk around, so I found the perfect cup out of my set there. And now we're pushing it right out. Here's the hoping that the cup that I'm pushing in is small enough to fall out when it's done. We're gonna find out real soon. Yes, yes it was. And there we go. We've got a place to push in a new bushing, and you can see here just how trapped that sucker is. It wants to gall the bore on the way out. At least mine was. So I'm gonna grab the new bush and we're gonna drive it in, the bearing, sorry. All right, so once you're ready, you're gonna take the adapters. Here they are, they look exactly the same. You're gonna remove them out of your BMR LCA bearing here. And look at how I've got the control arm. This is where the, let me think, the tow arm connects right here. This is the outside of the housing. You see, look, this is the inside. Here's the two lower control arm bushings bearings. This is the outside, so it has to come through like this. Now, before you go trying to ram a jam this thing in what is a very tight interference fit, you should put some oil on it. BMR didn't specify, and I'm difficult, so I used silicone lube. Just basically any type of oil that can lubricate well on the way in. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this sat into the press over there and try to find out a good situation for pushing it in the hole. So here's my cup and driver arrangement. I've got it settled up on there, and luckily this is driving in pretty easy. So I'm going to drive this down all the way until this flange makes solid contact with the control arm, and I'm going to bring you back because after that we've got to put a circlip to retain it. See you in a minute. All right, next thing we got to do is put this C-clip on. Jake, why don't you get up in here? I'm going to hold it up against the end of the bearing here, put my clip tool in, push down, spread it open, and hope that this doesn't fly and cause me to meet Jesus anytime soon. My tool isn't quite big enough for this clip. Which means I'm gonna have to do some ghetto things. Give me a second. When you come back, this clip is gonna be on. Be right back. And just like that, I've got it in, and I'm just moving it around to make sure it's settled. So, you might be asking yourself, what next? Well, because we literally had to take apart the entire side of the suspension of the car for this, and like I said, these are the same on both sides, so they literally just plunk right into the hole, and you're ready to rock and roll. Ooh, that rhymed. I like it. Same thing on this side. So they're going to try to fall out on the way to the car, so don't hurt your stuff. We're going to go stick this back in the car. Now, it is going to be in the exact opposite order of the new way that I showed you how to take it apart, which is literally to disassemble the entire suspension of that side of the car. Otherwise, you will go insane. I'm a little bit insane right now. If you can't tell by the slight amount of crazy in my face, it's there. Thank you, BMR. So you've seen the video from when I was still somewhat happy, probably not, I don't think I was, of pressing this bearing in and out for the other control arm. Now let me tell you, this bearing came out so much harder. That medium-sized shop press I have right there, the medium-sized one from Harbor Freight, is 12 tons. 12 tons was almost not enough to get this guy to come out. And it gouged. Boy, it drug hard on the way out. And it's got to be that the bore in this control arm is tighter than the other one. Now, the other one was tight, clearly, because it's scratched up. But see, it's not nearly as wild as this one is. It was freaking in there. And whenever I pushed the BMR LCA bearing in here, it actually gouged some of that clearance back out on the way in. It's in there. Well, it'll probably come out easier now, but it actually pushed some metal out on the way in. You can see here I've got my clip clipped in and all that other fun stuff. So now obviously doing this, it is in the exact reverse order of the way it came apart. Just go ahead and reassemble everything. Just like that, the control arm is sitting back in the car. You can see I've got the bolts in here. A bit of advice, it's easier to start this guy. It looks impossible when you go to put it back together again. unless you sink this guy in. So put this one in first and push it pretty deep in here beyond the bolt hole. And then you can twist the bearing in this one and get this side to settle in, and then stab your bolts. The frontmost smaller bolt is the front of the car. The frontmost is 166 foot-pounds. The rearmost is 184. If you, like me, intend to take this stuff apart again, try a good bit, trying different things, all of that, just write the torque specs of the bolts where they are. It makes it so much easier not to have to look this stuff up over and over again. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and torque those bolts down, and then I'm gonna start putting this assembly back in. All right, and once those are torqued down, you're ready to put the spring back in. But can we take a minute to appreciate the free movement that that control arm has now and can't be bound up by that rubber bushing like mine really like to do? It made alignments really difficult for the alignment techs because of all of the aftermarket stuff I have, so highly recommend. Anyways, let's put the spring back in. Just like that, the spring is back in the car. Now I want to say it will go in like this. It's going to feel impossible. You're going to come in from this angle, leading with the top of it in, and you're just going to twist the spring, and when the coils get in the right position, it kind of slips past this, and then make sure you seat your coil back into your isolators properly. You can see we're fully sitting up against the stop here, which is matched into the lower control arm, as well as the upper. Now, if my isolators look different than yours, there's a good reason for this. The S650 isolators are garbage. They're way thinner, they don't hook onto the spring very well, and they weren't working well with my Steeda drag springs. They worked okay with the stocks, but even then, they had a nasty habit under hard launches of trying to roll out of there. And you can see the damage to the powder coating here that was caused by that. So these are actually S550 spring isolators, which are much better, and they're not expensive. So if you're doing springs on the car, and because these are a little taller, they're going to affect your ride height, just go ahead and put the S550 isolators on them. Now, let's go ahead and stick the knuckle and the axle back in. Just like that, the knuckle is back in the car. I wanted to show you just the amount of free movement and travel we have here without those rubber bushings in. You can see just how smoothly this entire assembly wants to move once you get rid of that rubber. And that's a big deal for a drag car, where controlling the squat of the rear end consistently can be make or break. So let me whip y'all around. I'm gonna show y'all some torque specs here and what you need to do next. I've got all of these bolts in, but loose, and this one's very loose. Something I want to make very evidently known to you is that you should not tighten these bolts until the suspension is in a more natural position. Now look, if you replace everything in here, including this, the toe arm and toe arm bushing and the vertical link with the Delrin and metal bearing versions of them, you don't need to do this. But if you're going in with anything that has rubber bushings in it, like I'm about to replace these, but I'm gonna show you the right way. You must loosely assemble all of these things, run it down to where it's hand tight, and then back off a little bit so everything moves freely. And then you're gonna have to put a jack here under the hub, and you're gonna lift up on the hub until the car just starts to come off at a jack stand, indicating that you've got full weight on it. And then you can come in and torque all of these. You're going to be torquing to 76 foot-pounds for the camber arm. You've got 129 foot-pounds for the bottom of the vertical link arm here. The top of the vertical link arm is 76. If we look down here, this tow rod connection is 129 foot-pounds. This big guy up front is 203 foot-pounds. Don't use an Ugga-Dugga for these. A lot of this is preloaded stuff. Make sure you bring it up to the right pressures. And then lastly, whenever you go to put your brakes on here, these two are going to be 129 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the brakes here. So when I bring you back, the brakes will be in, and my strut will be in. I think the stock strut bolts are 33 foot-pounds. Yep, 33, 35, something like that. So tighten those up. Mine are different because it's aftermarket. And when I bring you back, all of that's going to be in, and we'll be done here. Now, I'm not going to torque mine just yet because I'm actually doing more install videos showing you how to do the vertical link, the toe bearing, which is down here. Kelly at Kelltrac is a toe bearing. I'm going to show you how to do that, as well as the toe arm. So let me go ahead and finish putting the brakes and stuff back together. Last but not least, while we're up here, don't forget to reconnect your sway bar end links, tighten them up. Now, there is technically a torque spec for this. No, I don't know what it is. I don't have a crow's foot to put on my torque wrench to set it that way. But in my opinion, good and tight is good enough. So Allen key, 18 mil, and just cinder down real good and tight so it doesn't rattle around. You can see here I still have these connectors loose. The brake line is loose just so that I don't forget. Now we need to get under the car and retighten the subframe. I suppose I should say clearly, make sure you've done the other side of the car before you tighten your subframe back up, because, well, then you'd be working against yourself. So let's get under there. Now listen, this is important. Whenever you're tightening your subframe back up, you need to do it a little bit at a time so that you don't drive it up all kinds of wonky. So I'm going to put my impact on it. I'm going to do a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there. When you get closer to the end, you're going to want to start your 2 bolts on the subframe connector right here. 1, 2. You're going to want to start those before you go too far in or get it too tight. Otherwise, you'll never get them lined back up. And if you don't have Kelly's Posiloc from Kelltrac to keep these subframes centered, your job's going to be a little more fun. Mine's going to go right back in place where it's supposed to be. But if you don't have that, then you're going to need to do like I did here and measure center of the body and center of the subframe and line marks up and make sure that your subframe is relatively centered, because otherwise your alignment guy is going to hate you. One of two things. Either going to hate you because it's going to be really out of whack and they're going to have trouble getting it straight and it's going to be all kinds of this way, that way, or you're going to have to pay them to undo your subframe, get it back in center and not twisted, etc., to put it back in the right place. My suggestion is don't mess with any of that nonsense. Get Kelly's Posiloc system at Kelltrac and you won't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the subframe sucked back up and in. All right, and once you've got all of the subframe bolts tightened up, these are going to go to 129 foot-pounds, and these smaller subframe connector bolts are going to go to 41. So obviously, if you removed your exhaust like I did, if it was in the way of these rear bolts, and it probably was, you're going to need to put your mufflers back on. I shouldn't have to explain to you how to do that, so put your mufflers back on. And once you've done that, well, both sides are done with the exception of putting our brake hose back on and reconnecting our connectors. Oh, one more thing I wanted to tell you. When you're tightening the subframe, and you might want to go back and check this right now, but when you're tightening the subframe, make sure your springs are on their isolators and rotate it into the correct position. You see how it's up against the rubber isolator and it's docked into its holder here on the bottom of the control arm, and then up here we are all the way up against and it's screwed all the way down and everything is where it's supposed to be. Now, if you've got lowering springs, usually you can still twist and adjust those things after the fact, but if you don't, it's going to be very difficult. So just make sure you check that. Like I said, don't forget to reconnect your brake line and your parking brake and your ABS sensor and put the bolts all back in. That's 10 and 8 millimeters. Now, if you did what I told you to do and took it all apart and pulled the knuckle, this was a pretty easy thing to do. There's not a tremendous amount of failure on my bearings. There are some rips in them, but I was getting a weird issue where the suspension was kind of hanging up. There was a bunch of drag in it, right? A bunch of resistance. And that kind of binding you really don't want on a drag car. So I'm very happy to be rid of these rubber bushings because it's going to allow for a lot freer movement. And of course now I need to go get rid of some more rubber because these guys are binding points too, as well as these guys, the toe bearings. If you're interested in seeing those videos are going to come out after this one. So just hang out for a bit, and tomorrow each one of these videos the day after is going to release. Anyway, thank y'all for watching, including dealing with my avid frustration in doing the driver's side initially. As usual, we love you. God bless. Peace.